Everybody, Rob Jones here. I'm on with Gary Kramer. How's everybody doing? This week is week 5, optimizing and scaling up. Actually, let me go ahead and share my webcam. Gary, you there? Can you hear me?
I am. How are you doing this morning?
I am good. All right. There's my webcam.
Right.
You want to share yours? So we're starting a little bit late because we were having some internet connection issues. So hopefully the internet connection will be good, but we'll play that by ear as we go. There you are. Hello, gorgeous.
Yeah. Hello, baby.
All right. So cool. So let's go ahead and let's hop into it. Can everybody just type in, let us know if you can hear our voices okay, and if you can see the screen. You should see week 5, optimizing and scaling up. You should see both of our webcams. Of course, I'm at my home in Canggu in Bali. Gary's at his home in Ubud in Bali.
Yep.
All right, everybody says voices and screens are okay. Cool. All right, so this week is welcome to the week 5 training session. This is optimizing and scaling up. This is the exciting part when you're running an ad and you're getting to that point where you've got an ad that's starting to work and it's time to start optimizing it and getting it to that point where you can scale it up really big. So we're going to talk about that today, and that's going to be very exciting. So let's do a quick review what we covered last week. We did a progress update. And then we went through the entire 3-step funnel, piecing everything together based on the feedback that we were getting from people. We decided to make last week's training session about just a more in-depth view of every section of the 3-step funnel before we went on to scaling up. And we got a ton of positive feedback on that. So I think that was very helpful for a lot of people. It helped them to wrap their minds around how the whole funnel works, how Gary's whole 3-step funnel works, so they could understand each step and kind of get their mind working around that. So that was helpful. What we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about the ad challenge real quick, and then we're going to go into the content this week, which is mindset, goals and targets, budget management, split testing guidelines, tracking IDs, and a really cool method called the tap the vein method, which is very powerful. We'll get to that towards the end. It's kind of a secret little insider trick that works really well. All right, so as always, if you haven't followed us yet, you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. If you go to the Ultimate Freedom blog, all of these links should be over there as well, ultimatefreedom.com, where we're always we're adding content there on a fairly regular basis. So a quick progress update for this week. There's a bunch of new content in the members area. We uploaded, I believe it's in the week, what are we on now? We're on week 5 now. So I believe most of the stuff is uploaded in week 4. There's an interview with a top vendor where it's a really cool, powerful interview. And we talk about, we went ahead and we got everybody's set up with their boosted commissions for that offer. I think there's a little bit of confusion about the percentages, but it should all be spelled out on the page there. So if you submitted your ClickBank ID to us on the form, which I believe is on, the form is probably linked in week 1. So we had you, first thing we had you submit your ClickBank IDs to us. Then you should have gotten you should have gotten an email from ClickBank that said you've been whitelisted. And if you don't see that, you can reach out to support. So you're good to go on that. You got a handful of offers to promote. Again, we'll talk about the ad challenge here in just a minute. I covered the interview with the top vendor. The supplemental videos, we've uploaded a number of supplemental videos in week 5 walking you through the nitty-gritty, just step-by-step. Here's what you do when you're setting up your Facebook page, when you're setting up an ad, and various elements of that. So go ahead and hop into the week 5. Check that out. Gary, anything to add before I go on? I think maybe you were saying some stuff, but there's the delay, so I'll pause for a sec.
No, I think you covered it.
All right, cool. So let's hop into it. All right, so first things first, I want to talk about the ad challenge. So we have been coding out a tool in the members area to make this very simple for you. It's going to look something like this. We've got it in, we've been testing it. It will be added to the members area this week. And I wanted to just give you some screenshots. This is basically what it looks like. It'll be on one of the pages in the members area. It just looks like a Facebook ad. And you could click on each of these and you can edit them. So you'll go through, if you try to save it and you haven't edited anything, it'll show you this status. And there'll be little X's next to everything. So if you click on one of these to edit it, you've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements to edit. You have to edit all of them before you can submit it. So you can save your page, you could go back, you could save your ad, you could go back in, you can edit it. What'll happen is when you click on it, the image is a little blurry, but you can get the idea. It'll let you just edit it. So we change that to Better Fit or You or whatever the name of your page is. Click the save button, and then now it will show a little green check mark next to that element. Once you have these all green, you will then be able to submit it to the ad challenge, and then we will be doing the ad challenge over the next few weeks. We've got a few special things with that, so we'll announce more about that. So that's basically how the software will work. There might be a few little changes here, but I'll add a tutorial video on that page as well, and any instructions if this interface should change at all. Don't worry, just watch through the instructions there. So that's the ad challenge. That's going to be really exciting because you'll be able to get feedback on your ads directly from us. There is something that I wanted to bring up actually that Gary brought up before the webinar. We had a few people reach out and say that they ran our exact ads and funnels, and they had some issues on Facebook. And I want to reiterate, don't run the exact same stuff that we're showing you here. Don't run the exact same images. Don't run the pre-sale page exactly as said. You want to go in and you want to edit some stuff for your offer. You want to edit some stuff. So we're probably going to put in some supplemental content on that page just to clarify a few things. So keep an eye out this week on the pre-sale pages and stuff, and we're going to give you a little bit more supplemental content because I think there's been some confusion with a handful of people who were just who just copied the stuff and they didn't make the necessary changes, because some of this stuff is their ads that we ran for a past offer that's no longer, we don't run anymore, and we tried to give you some instructions on how to change it, but we're going to add some supplemental content to hopefully clarify that. So watch out for that this week.
Along with that, will be a video called Fail Point video. That'll be really powerful. Central Fail Point, yep. And that'll be like your Bible for the next year. So that'll be posted up there probably tomorrow, same time as the replay of this video. It'll be posted up there as well.
Absolutely, and soon we'll be going into the the ad accounts. So for those of you who there's a handful of people that came in that already had issues with their ad accounts. They didn't have a working ad account, or they'd had an ad account shut down in the past or something. So we've been getting a lot of questions from those people who want to find out when we're doing the ad account training. So that'll probably be next week. We've just been so busy with all of these trainings and uploading everything but that's something that people are really looking forward to. So that's going to be very powerful as well. So quick review, Gary's 3-step funnel. The 3 steps are the ad, the pre-sale page, and the offer. And just to review, the purpose of the ad is to get their attention and get the click, and you don't want to sell on the ad. You want to meet them where they are on the website. When we're on Facebook, that's a social mindset. So you want to meet them in that social atmosphere. You want a social ad that gets them to get the click. The purpose of the pre-sale page is to slowly shift their thinking over from that social mindset to focusing on their problem, stirring up that emotion, and getting them primed to go on over to the offer. That was a really loud ding. That must have been you, Gary. So the the pre-sale page is to shift their mindset into that buyer's mindset. Then you send them on over to the offer. Of course, the purpose of the offer is to sell. So we send them over to proven offers that sell very well, and it does a very good job of taking them from that, you've primed them properly in that buyer's mindset, that problem-focused mindset, and send them over the offer, and then the offer does all the job of selling them on the product you're promoting. All right, so let's hop into it. So Gary, you're up. So mindset for success. Your microphone is muted.
Yeah. So let me know, because I know that my internet connection has been kind of bad this week, and I know you were mentioning. So just let me know, everyone, if you have any issues at all hearing. So I'll tell you a little bit about my own personal mindset for success. I've talked a lot about the big 3 pillars, and I've even kind of expanded on that a little bit. But I think that the big pillars for success are having your blueprint, which we're giving you now. We've laid this out for you, and then taking massive action, staying focused, not getting distracted, and then following through and just not giving up too soon. And then the 5th one really being making this a lifelong, plan, and not looking at it like a short-term flash in the pan. I'm going to try this out for a month or 2 and see how it works. But you got to choose something in life, in your career, that you believe in, and there's going to be a lot of things that come your way. There's tons of good options out there for running a business, but you need to pick one, because there's enough good ones. The problem is when people switch and switch and switch, and they never stick to one thing. That ends up leading to failure over and over and over again. So I know that this is an amazing model. I've made the mistake myself of just trying everything under the sun, and doing quite well with a lot of them, but always giving up and always moving on. The fortunate thing for you guys and for myself is that by doing that, I was able to climb this ladder and eventually find that perfect thing. Had I just committed to the first thing that I tried, maybe I'd still be doing something that would keep me on that treadmill. Instead, I tried everything, and I ended up finding the best thing. So I think that paid ads are the best thing. So it's because it's completely scalable. It's going to be around forever. It's not going to be the treadmill. And it's something that anybody can do. You can start really fast with it. So I don't think I need to sell you guys on paid ads as being like the ultimate business model. But what I may need to convince you of is that you need to stick with it and don't switch your target all the time. Get focused on one thing. And so that's that. Now, as far as my mindset for running ads, this is a little bit different. So my mindset for running ads is, like most things, again, this is just something that I've learned over time through experience, is that success comes through simplicity. And it's really important that you practice simplicity. And if you ever heard the saying, keep it simple, that's what I'm all about. Part of that is because I kind of suck at technical stuff. And so if I try to force myself to do something that I'm not good at, it's going to bring pain, it's going to bring burnout, overwhelm, unhappiness, discomfort, suffering, and eventually me just giving up. So I have spent my whole life around trying to do things a way that's conducive to success for myself. And I found that a lot of people share those same deficits that I have, or the same, mainly that's it, mainly the deficits, the things that cause most of us to fail. They're the same for most of us. There's a few people who are geniuses or who are exceptionally smart, or they have, the superior work ethic and you know, all of those things that make people great. They wake up at 4 a.m. and they work 20 hours a day or whatever, and they never get tired and they never give up. And great. I'm glad that those people exist, to make us all feel like crap about ourselves. But but for the most of us, though, we aren't those people. We have to figure out a way that works for us. So for me, it's to keep things simple. It's to avoid burnout. It's to stay. It's to focus on the right things. So that's what I try to do. I find that you know, I got to do that in order to be successful. I don't know if you've ever heard of, there's a guy, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, I think his name is, and he's like this Hungarian American psychologist, and he coined the term flow. Have you ever heard of flow, like the flow state? It's really about, you know, getting into this highly focused mental state. And what I found is, you know, that matches his studies, or his psychology, is that, you know, if you try too hard, if you work too hard, you're going to get burnt out, or you're going to live in a state of like panic or anxiety. And if you're not challenged enough, you're bored, you know. So you have to find that flow state in the middle. You can look it up on Google. I think just look up like a flow channel chart or something like that, and you can see it. But it's really interesting. I try to live in the flow state, where I want to take massive action. So I want to emphasize to you guys that massive action is key, but also that you have to do it in such a way where you're not going to burn yourself out. So you need to do it in a way where it's kind of fun. You need to do things in a way that's simple, so that you're not overwhelmed or you're not freaked out because things are too technical or too difficult, you know, to maintain your growth. So I try to keep things super simple, not overexert myself. I believe that, you know, the volume is more important than the intensity. So if you take massive action, yes, you do need to do that, but you don't want to burn yourself out by, you know, working 20 hours a day either. You got to stay for the long term. You got to like build toward longevity so that you can do this for a really long time. One of the things that we talk about in the fail point video that you'll see probably tomorrow will explain a lot of that to you. Okay, so you know, you got to make sure that, you know, if you find something that's working. So let's say that you're running an ad and you get to that 100% ROI mark. You got to keep testing and tweaking things. You know, you might change the targeting a little bit. You might change the ad a little bit. You might change the headline on your ad, or these various different things until you split test your ad and eventually you get something that's working. You don't need to keep split testing forever. You don't need to keep tweaking forever. Sometimes you just need to go out and enjoy your life. So if I have an ad that's doing 100% ROI, I will keep tweaking it because I've tasted that 200, 300, 400% ROI enough times that that's my ultimate goal. So I have like a minimal goal of like 100% ROI, and then I have this ultimate goal of like 300+% ROI. But if I get to the point where I have that, if I've achieved 200, 300% ROI, and I've tested enough things on my funnel, from my ad to my pre-sale page, and I'm doing pretty well. Like I'm doing really well. I'm spending, say $5,000 and I'm making 10,000 or 15,000. When it's time to go watch a movie, where it's, or here in Bali, time to go on a road trip or do something fun with your life, so that you don't get burnt out, because you got to remember why you're here. Like, what is it that you're working for? Most people work and they think that they forget why they're working, and they only remember that they're here to work. And then they forget why they're working so hard. So I try not to forget that it's the freedom that I want. So when we asked you guys when you first came on, to give us your before snapshot, of where you are and where you want to be. Like, remember that. Don't forget it, because when you start achieving success, you gotta, like, this will be the moment that you need to live in, so you can kind of experience that. So that's most of it for me, for mindset. It's really just about keeping things super simple, not getting overwhelmed, taking a break when you get some success, and planning for longevity and keeping yourself motivated and moving forward. Don't allow yourself to give up. Don't push yourself so hard that if you have a failure, it forces you to throw in the towel, because you're not getting the reward and you're not having the enjoyment in life that you need in order to keep going. That's mostly it for me for mindset, unless you have questions. Yeah.
Now let's hop on to the next section, which is goals and targets.
Right. Okay. Now there's really the ultimate goal it can be summed up in your ROI. So I know we've mentioned this before, but your return on your investment is really key to your success. Everything else is only an indicator that will give you some idea if you're on the right track or not. So let me kind of run through what some of those indicator points are. The first one is your ad. So I have probably run ads that get around 6 or 7% ROI that still do 6 or 7% click-through ratio that still do 100% or better ROI. So again, I have run across students where they were doing 100% ROI, and because they only had a 6 or 7% click-through ratio on their ad, they scrapped the ad or scrapped the image, changed the image, and then got a better CTR and a lower ROI. And I know that might be unbelievable to some of you, but it literally happens sometimes. So I want to emphasize to you that ROI is the key here. So if you're making 100% ROI, why would you throw that away? I don't get that. But sometimes we get caught up in the minutia and we don't see the big picture. So the big picture here is ROI. If you're spending $1, making it $2, then don't mess that up. Don't mess up a good thing. But that said, my goal is usually, and my target is somewhere around 10 to 20%. And I will say that I rarely get over 15% click-through ratio on an image or on an ad. It happens regularly, but it's not. It's kind of like, it's not one of those things that I expect. I do expect to get somewhere in the 8, 9, 10 plus % ROI range, though. Now, it is important to emphasize again, to re-emphasize that just because you get a 10 or a 15% ROI, I'm sorry, I keep saying ROI, CTR, does not mean that that's going to be a successful ad. Doesn't mean that you're going to positive ROI. So don't come to us saying, hey, Gary, I don't understand what's going on here. I did what you said. Now I'm getting a 10, 12% click-through ratio, but I'm still not getting any sales. Again, these are only indicators. It's an indicator that you're on the right track because people are clicking it. Now, if somebody's clicking your ad, that's a good thing, but maybe you can help me out with an analogy here, Rob, if one comes to you. But the idea is that there are cases where you can get someone to take an action, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've successfully put them into a buyer mode, right? So if somebody clicks on your ad, they might click it sheerly out of curiosity, but you haven't tapped into the right part yet, right? So maybe they tapped it just purely for curiosity's sake, but you didn't indicate, that this is about weight loss, so you've kind of like, what do they call it, bait and switch or whatever, a little bit, or you've unsuccessfully, yeah, you maybe do clickbait or something. You unsuccessfully transition them from that social mindset into the buyer mindset, and so they hop over because they're super curious on this pattern interrupt or maybe the incongruity, but you haven't done a good job of seeding what it's about. So if they knew it was about weight loss, when they get there to your pre-sale page, maybe they're going to be more inclined to follow through the entire funnel. So sometimes, it just comes down to tweaking. So the point is, though, if you set up an ad that does a high CTR, pat yourself on the back, you've achieved a milestone. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be successful necessarily. I'd say about 80% of the time it will be. That's why it makes it a good indicator. If it was only successful half the time when you get a high CTR, that wouldn't be a good indicator. But it's a great indicator because generally speaking, when you get a high CTR, you're also going to get some sales. So let's move on to the pre-sale page. The pre-sale page, I think I mentioned most of this stuff before, but just to reiterate, the pre-sale page, I'm looking for like a 20% click-through ratio from the pre-sale page to the offer. And I have gotten as high as 45%. Sometimes I've even gotten as high as like 70% or 80% on a landing page, where it's just, but it's something that's just so abnormal that I don't even like to refer to it, because it's like an anomaly almost. But if I'm doing in the 20% plus range, I know that I'm in a good path to get that 100% ROI or better. So what that means is that if you're studying your pre-sale page or your numbers, your click-through ratios on your ad and your pre-sale page, if you find that you're at like a 10% click-through ratio on the pre-sale page, then you know that you have a lot of room to grow. And if you're at a 5% on your ad, you know you have a lot of room to grow. Now, I'll back up a little bit. Okay, so if I have, say I see that I have a 6.63% on my ad, and I have say a 31% on my pre-sale page, where should I spend my time tweaking and split testing in that funnel? Anybody have any guess?
I have a guess.
Okay, what is
the ad, the image.
The image, that's right. I'll hop in here and see if people get it too. Yeah, the ad. So people get it. So again, it's just a matter of, say, find your target for your ad and your target for your pre-sale page, and just compare them. So if you see that you're doing, say 12% on your ad and 12% on your pre-sale page, because your target is, say, 20 to 30% for your pre-sale page, that's the guide, right? That's that guide that shows you, well, okay, now I should start split testing my pre-sale page, because you're going to find that when you're really low on something, your little tweaks are going to make a big, significant difference. So let's look at it.
Can I hop in here and add something?
Huh?
Can I hop in here and add something real quick?
Go for it.
Something you've mentioned a couple times, and I've seen a lot with some of the mentoring students and stuff like that, is that if you've got a pre-sale page that's, a good pre-sale page, but you're seeing kind of low numbers on your pre-sale page, a lot of times what happens is when you get the ad dialed in, it's like the rest of your funnel just sort of works itself out. And you would think that, so you think that these things are not connected. Like in your head, you're thinking like, oh, I can split test the ad and I can split test the pre-sale page separately. If I have two ads and one ad is doing 10% or 10% click-through rates, and another ad is doing 5% click-through rates, and they're both going to the same pre-sale page with the same Facebook audience, it's the same people seeing the ads, they're clicking through, and I've got a 20% click-through rate on my pre-sale page, on the first ad, I'm going to have a 20% click-through rate on the second ad because it's the same pre-sale page, when in fact, it doesn't necessarily work like that. You might see a low click-through rate on your pre-sale page if your ad's not working. But if your ad is working and you really nail the ad, it's like you see a huge spike in the click-through rate on your pre-sale page. And so this has happened enough times that I think it's worth mentioning, not to stress out so much about if you know that you're following the guidelines on the pre-sale page and you've got a pretty good pre-sale page, I would not stress out about the pre-sale page until after you've got your ad dialed in. Make sure you're using the best practices for the pre-sale page, but your number one priority is to get your ad working. And if your ad is working and your pre-sale page still is having problems, then maybe you should be worried about split testing the pre-sale page. But I think the priority goes on split testing the ad. With that in mind, I mean, there's probably some minimums. If your pre-sale page is getting a 4% click-through rate, then obviously there's something really, really wrong with your pre-sale page. But as long as it's in some, reasonable range, I think that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, that's a good point, Rob. I would also say that, to reemphasize what you said, there is a minimum threshold, and if you're doing 10% on your pre-sale page, it's going to be quite easy to up that. So I want to throw some numbers in there just to give you an idea. Now, if you're doing 100% ROI and you have a 10% click-through ratio on your ad, and say a 10%, 12% click-through ratio on your pre-sale page, you can be pretty confident using our methods that you can achieve 10+% on your ad and 20 to 30% on your pre-sale page with just little tweaks. So if you're doing 100% and you have a 10% on your ad and a 10% on your pre-sale page, just know, this is where I get excited, right? Because I know that if I tweak my pre-sale page, I know that I can get it to 20%. That means I just know that I can do 200% ROI. In fact, I will shoot for 30% on my pre-sale page because I know that I'm in the running to do a 300% ROI, those are the funnest, spans of time. When you can do 300+% ROI, I mean, you're like in heaven, right? Because you're like, damn. Again, you can go out and go eat dinner and you can look at your phone and be like, holy shit, I just made like $2,000 since I've been here, and those are those days that you just kind of live for. Even doing 100% ROI is great. It's an amazing feeling. But so again, these are all indicators. So if I'm at a 5% on my ad, I don't get excited. I usually throw that one away, or I tweak it, make some changes. I usually make my own images. I started using Fiverr probably about 2 years ago, just when I'm busy and I don't have time, if I get a little bit lazy or something like that, I'll use Fiverr. That works too. But I will tweak the image, but mostly if I'm just following that ROI. So if I get ROI on an image that's doing 7 or 8%, and as long as my pre-sale page is, I know that I'm going to hit that peak ROI point for that funnel at some point. And once I get to that peak ROI, and what I mean by peak ROI is that I've tested everything, I've tried as many things as I can, and it's just really not getting any better. And I feel like things have come to a crawl, and I'm not where I want to be. That's when I switch my focus to something new. I just don't want to waste my time. I have a limited amount of time. There's got to be a point where you shift your effort to a different ad image, or something. But like I said, if I can get in that range, if I can get in that sweet range where I'm like 10% on the ad and 20 to 30% on the pre-sale page, and it's still not working, then it's like, okay, good job. You tested it out. You took massive action. You did what you're supposed to do. It's not working. So chalk it up as a lesson learned. Take away from that experience as much as you can and move on. One of the biggest mistakes that people make, and this is a big one, so really, really pay attention to this. If you do not do this, please, because I've seen this happen so many times that it's painful to see it happen again. And what Rob brought up at the beginning of this episode, where he was like, so we had 30 people write in support saying that they ran the exact pre-sale page that we told you not to run. Don't duplicate, don't copy, emulate. And they made that mistake. So don't be lazy about this. But if you are running an ad and it hits 10% click-through ratio, and and possibly even you're at 20+% on your pre-sale page and it's not working, don't throw more money at it. This is what a lot of people think, like, well, maybe if I just throw more money at it, I'm only spending $20 a day. Maybe if I spend more money, I'll tap the vein or something like that. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about today is called tapping the vein, and it's a super powerful method, you know, that we developed a couple years ago. It's extremely powerful, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But maybe you think that if you spend a little more money, you'll tap the vein, and everything will start flowing, and it'll work for you. But that almost never happens. You can't buy your way into a successful funnel. You have to test your way into a successful funnel. And if it's not working at $20 after 3 days, or when you spend, say $100 or something, it's not going to magically start working because you throw money at it. So what I found is a lot of people will be like, oh, you know, I've spent like $2,000 and I barely made, you know, I've only made back $200. You know, I'm like, well, how did that happen? Because that seems really odd to me. You know, I rarely ever lose money, and if I do, it's $20, $40, $60. How would you get to the point where you've lost $1,600? And then they explain it's always the same answer. So if you want to avoid losing money, like going in the hole, I never look at testing and failing as really failing. I look at it as testing is like I'm acquiring insights, knowledge. I'm split testing. I'm learning, right? And I'm paying for my education, and that's fine. It's part of the process. But I don't really lose money very often. So yeah, so that's usually what happens when people explain it away. It makes sense. I can even, you know, expect it now. So if somebody says I'm in the hole, you know, $3,000 and I haven't really made much money back, I know why. It's because they threw too much money at it. They were like, maybe I'll just start it's like, think of it like this. You're in the kitchen and you're cooking eggs and you're in a hurry. You're like, I know what I'll do. I'll just turn it on high. That way I'll get up faster. And it doesn't work that way. You just burn your eggs, and, you know, and you're like, what happened? You know? So don't burn your eggs, you know, just take the time for it. So yeah. What else? What did I leave off?
The best way to lose a lot of money is to scale up a losing ad.
Yeah, that's the only way to really lose money. I mean, you can stay at it for months and barely spend any money because you tend to break even or better. It's rare that you would ever lose money because we're using a system that is conducive to earning money. So when you lose money, you only lose $5, $10, $20. When you make money, you earn hundreds, if not thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the odds of losing money in this game is very low if you follow our guidelines. But you know, that's where we have to, you know, be really clear that follow our guidelines. And this is always going to be the case. I know that there's somebody out there tuning out right now. So I want to tune you back in. Follow what we say, really. And I don't mean that to be like egocentric or anything. Like, you know, like you can do whatever you want, but this is key though. You know, don't mess this up, because again, you know, you got to work toward your longevity. You got to cater to your longevity. You got to do the things that are going to lead to you being here a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. And if you make one of those, if you break one of these golden rules and you end up losing a bunch of money, like if you stay at it for say a couple, 2-3 months even, and it's like you've had these little victories and these setbacks, but you're having fun. You know, again, you get into that flow state where you're like, I'm enjoying this. You know, I'm not overworking myself. I'm learning something new every day. I can feel how close I'm getting. I'm almost there. It's like, dude, I got like a 10% ROI on my image. It's like, I'm almost there. You know, it's like, oh, I just had my first $100 day. I haven't had a breakthrough yet, but it's like I'm right on the verge. You can ride that for a really long time and you won't get burnt out. You won't get depressed, because it's like you're working towards something and you're almost there. But if you make the mistake of being impatient and you spend too much too fast, and then you get into into debt or some kind of deficit in your ad spend and your ad budget, and you're like, I only got $3,000 to spend and I've just spent $2,000 of it, and you start feeling depressed, so don't make that mistake. You should be able to kind of like stay even, or you can go down and you go up a little bit, but you tend to kind of stay in that break even state until you have your breakthrough. So again, I think it's really important that you remember that. Don't make that big mistake.
So let's reiterate. Our next section is going to be the budget management. There's going to be a little bit of overlap on these two, but let's reiterate the goals and targets. So for the ad, you're hoping to get over 10% click-through rate, and for the pre-sale page, you're aiming for that 20 to 30% click-through rate range. I've noticed several questions on how do you actually determine what the click-through rate is on your pre-sale page, so I'll just cover that real quickly. You just crunch the numbers. So basically, the number that you're looking at is how many clicks did you get on your ad? So that's how many people saw your pre-sale page, and then what percentage of those people then clicked, went through the pre-sale page process and clicked over to the offer. And you're going to get that number of clicks over in ClickBank. So you'll see the number of, they call them hops. So when somebody clicks on the I agree button at the end of your pre-sale page, it's your hop link over, it's your affiliate link that goes over to ClickBank. So what you're going to do is if you have 10 people clicked on your ad and 2 people clicked on the I agree link, then you have a 20% click-through rate on your pre-sale page. I see you're like smiling over there, like, what did I do? Do I have a booger?
Oh, you didn't do anything. You just kind of reminded me of Nick, one of my earliest students, and what he was saying about, when he first got his breakthrough, and I think he made like $60K or something in his first month or month and a half, something like that. Remember the interview that I did with him, the very first interview I ever did with Nick? And at the end of it, he's like,
the question you asked him, what was his biggest struggle? And he goes, tracking, and you asked him, well, how do you do your tracking now? And he's like, well, I take the amount of money that I spent and I take the amount of money that I made and I minus the two.
Because I know it's kind of rookie, but the funny thing is though, is if it is rookie, I mean, he also reported making $270,000 in 1 month very recently, and doing like a $23,000 day. And this is like probably 4 years later, something like that. So
to be fair, I would say that Nick is really not super tech savvy, but he's like, he doesn't ever quit. He just moves forward. And in the beginning, he didn't know anything about tracking IDs or any of that. We'll cover that in a minute. And like that story, he made his first $60,000, which I believe 45,000 of that was profit in his first month and a half. And that was before he really even figured out tracking and stuff. But to be fair, nowadays, he's really good at tracking and testing stuff. So he will test all kinds of variations and track which variation is the one that's working, and he's just a beast at taking action.
Yeah, he understands the stuff. I guess he kind of developed his mind for it over time. But you'll still hear it. You'll still hear it when you talk. We'll probably do an interview with Nick this week. But you'll still hear it. I mean, he still follows the same book that I wrote, which is like keep things super simple, and he still does that. But I kind of lost my thought a little bit. What you were saying there, that kind of tickled my funny bone a little bit there, because but I think it was something around keeping things simple. But I lost it. It's okay though. It'll come back to me when we jump into this section.
All right, so let's hop into budget management. Okay. There's a few things that I'll mention. You probably have some stuff to mention. I want to make sure that we reiterate the idea, that the general concept of starting small and risking very little and only scaling up when you have a success. And so we have mentioned this a few times, but the idea of you're only testing your ad You'll have a campaign basically, which is like an ad and a pre-sale page and an offer and the whole combination there. So you'll be testing a campaign and you'll be spending 20 bucks a day, or you can even spend $5 a day. And you're only wanting to scale that up when you're hitting 100% ROI or more. So you don't want to go into an ad that's doing, 20% ROI and start scaling that up. You're still in the optimization phase. You still need to test and tweak stuff. So you'll be testing at that $5 to $20 a day range before you ever scale anything up. So the idea is you want to hit that 100% ROI or better, and then you start to scale up. So that's the general mindset behind this is test small, risk small amounts, and only scale up when you have a proven winner. And then I'll hand it off to you to cover the budget management.
Sure. So let's see here. All right. So I think what I want to get into a little bit here is just the mechanics of how my own personal budget management works, and what you can expect going forward. So we'll just use some round numbers so that it's easy to understand. Everybody that's on this call has a different, budget. You have different budget constraints. It's not really important, as Rob pointed out in our original presentation. You can start with a small budget, or you can start with for all intents and purposes, like an unlimited budget. We all end up in the same place eventually. We come together where you just you'll catch up to me is what happens. It's like our mentors have more or less caught up to me when it comes to Facebook ads and ClickBank, right? Because there's only so high you can go. You can only spend, really safely only about $5,000 a day doing what we do on Facebook. Some people are able to spend, $1 million a day, but that's like PepsiCo, or some major brand where they don't run into problems with account closures. But for what we're doing, running affiliate offers on Facebook, you kind of hit that invisible ceiling, of like 5K a day or something like that. So, you can do the 300% ROI, you can earn 20K a day, and nobody's going to complain about that. I don't think anybody on this call would complain about that. But anyway, so let's talk about the mechanics behind the scenes, the things the limitations that we have, and how things work. So, okay. So with ClickBank, there is, what happens is, let's say that you spend $1,000 and you make $2,000 in your first week. Whoa, I almost fell off my chair. Say you make $2,000, so you earn $1,000. So it's important to understand when you do your budgeting, what happens with that money that you earn. Now, if you're set up to be paid, bi-monthly or whatever you want to call it, bi-weekly, you're basically going to receive your paycheck every 2 weeks. So let's say they have $2,000 in 2 weeks, you spend $2,000 and you make $4,000. Say everything is textbook perfect, right? You're doing 100% ROI. So at the end of 2 weeks, you're basically out of money. Now, of course, what I recommend is that you use credit cards, because if you already have credit, now is the time to use it. I'll just say this again. I think I've said this before in a different training, but definitely a lot of you have probably been schooled by your parents, schooled by certain people in society that using credit is a sin, or that it's bad, or that it's even dumb or stupid. My own mom taught me that I was a fool if I would use credit, and I believed her, and I never did use credit for most of my life till I was probably like 35 years old or something like that, even older, 40 years old probably. I just never used credit. So what that meant is I didn't have any credit. I had no credit. Even though I was making good money, I had zero credit. I never took out a loan. I paid cash for everything. I was like, if I told people that, I was like, yeah, I bought my mom a house with they ask about loans and stuff. I'm like, no, I didn't get a loan. I just paid with cash. Well, I could have really built up my credit, through this process, right? But I didn't. So it wasn't until I got into ads where I realized the value of the OPM method, which we've mentioned before. It's the other people's money method of running a business, where you can use credit, loans and things like that, just to run your ads. And you're paying you can pay off your ad spend every day, but you're running it through a credit card. And so anyway, so definitely you want to consider doing credit. If you don't have credit, explore how to improve your credit. I did it, and I know that other tons of people do it. It's not as hard as you might think. If you have a big stack of debt, yeah, I understand. You have student loans, and you have defaulted loans, or you didn't pay some kind of like utility bills that are hanging over your head. There are certain things that I'm not like an expert on this. Rob and I have a mutual friend that's really good at this, but I'm not an expert at it, but I have learned a lot about it. And it's not that difficult. It's not rocket science or brain surgery. It's just follow a thing. If you watch the video from Gigi, she started out with absolutely no credit, and within just a matter of 3 months or something like that, she was already earning $1,100 a day. And she got her first credit card, and she made it work. So anybody can do it. You can too. So using other people's money is a good idea. So back to the mechanics of ClickBank, though. Okay. So what's going to happen with that $2,000 that you spend? Now you have no money. You have to wait for 2 weeks, right? So if you do it right, you spend 2 weeks to tap out your budget, and then you're going to get a paycheck. It's going to hit your bank. So if you do direct deposit, you got $4,000 that just hit your bank. But that doesn't, you would think, right? You'd say, I just made $4,000 in sales off a $2,000 budget. What actually happens, though, is that there's a 20% hold on that money. It's like a reserve. And so 20% of that $4,000 that you earned is like, what is that? $800. So of that $4,000 that you earned, 2,000 of that was from your credit, and 2,000 of that was earned, but 800 of that is going to be held. So now you only actually receive $1,200 profit. Now the way you still have that other $800, but it's held there on a reserve so that if there are refunds, it's like ClickBank has some kind of backup plan, right? So they can hold that cash and they can pay refunds out of that money. And then they hold it for 12 weeks. So 12 weeks later, they start dripping out that they give you what they call a release. So if you look in your paycheck section on ClickBank, you'll see that 12 weeks later, so if they hold 800, 12 weeks later, they'll release that 800. And then 13 weeks later, they'll release whatever the hold was for the previous week. So after 12 weeks, you catch up. But during that 12-week period, you might see that you're making more money than what you're receiving, and you're kind of in that 12-week window where it's a little growing phase for you, and the cash flow may be a little bit tighter.
The thing is, though, let me hop in here. A lot of the products that are the highest selling products tend to have a little bit higher refund rates because they do a better job at pushing the emotional hot buttons and getting people to buy. And so the trade-off is they sell really, really well, but then you have a higher percentage of people that refund. So I wouldn't really stress out too much about that hold that they do, the 20%, because that's really just there to cover refunds. On some products, you may see a 20% refund rate. So that hold, you don't even have to stress about that because your profit in the end is that 80% that they already paid you. But you can see those numbers in ClickBank, and if you try to look at the payouts and you see the way that they title them and stuff on their little spreadsheet, it doesn't make any sense. But just look at your paychecks, what you're getting paid. But anyway, sorry to interrupt, but back to you.
Okay. No, that was my next thing on my list. I was going to talk about refunds. So refunds can be anywhere from 5% to as high as 50%. Definitely, you want to keep an eye on that. I would say is a really rare because ClickBank is pretty good about working with their vendors to make sure that they don't exceed a certain threshold of refunds and chargebacks. In fact, if a vendor receives a chargeback rate over 1%, they can get their account shut down, or they can really get reprimanded. The refund rate they're not as strict about. They're not going to like close a vendor's account down because the refund rate is too high, but they will definitely put fire underneath them. So what tends to happen is like they'll come in and they'll be like, okay, the vendor needs to make these changes, and then the vendor will make changes, and then keep their refund rate under that 25%. But a lot of them, are very successful at it. Some of these vendors, top vendors, they really master saving the sale and things like that, so that their refund rates get down to 10%, single digits even. So, but yeah, that is just something that you need to pay attention to, though. That it is, that there will be that little that 12-week allowance. So you just have to account for it. But the way that you offset all of that stuff is through performance, right? So as you go, you're tweaking, you're split testing, and your performance will increase. And this is where we realize that the vendors will give us pay bumps. Now, I've already negotiated a pay bump, your first ever pay bump, with I won't say any names or anything, but look inside of the members area. The first interview that I just did a few days ago, I negotiated a pay bump for you. So as soon as you get your first sale, you'll get an immediate pay bump for a top offer. But that pay bump can be pretty significant depending on the vendor. Some vendors will give you as much as 100%. Sometimes they start as low as 50%. So more likely they're probably offering 70%, 60%, 70%, and you can get a pay bump up to 90% or 100%. So when you get that 20, 30% boost, it calculates into your ROI. So you're just making a higher ROI. Then, like we said last couple of weeks, that ClickBank can give you faster payouts. You get paid out every week instead of every 2 weeks, so you can double your ad spend. And then also reinvesting your profits is a big factor. So it's kind of like it's a matter of having self-control and willpower, and especially in the beginning, because like I said, we all converge. You will, if you stay at this long enough, your ad spend will converge with mine. Now, I might be running ads on more platforms, so overall, I might be, you might make $20,000 a day on Facebook, and maybe Rob and I are making $100,000 a day because we're using multiple different platforms, and my competitive side says you'll never catch me, but in reality, you will, because we all converge at some point. You get to the point where I have capped out, how much I can spend on Facebook. I can run multiple accounts. There's always ways that you can scale it up, but you'll get there. You'll definitely get there if you keep at it long enough. All right. So again, reinvesting your profits is how you get there. So as long as you reinvest your profits in the beginning, you will, by your 12th week, I don't even know. I mean, it can happen faster than that. You just get to the point where you're spending enough money, you're spending $5K a day, and you're just like, now you can start spending your profits and enjoying your life, and you don't have to roll all of your money back into ad spend anymore, because you're cash rich. And most of the successful affiliates, the super affiliates, they become cash rich, and they some of them, some people even go off on a spending frenzy, like they go crazy, and there's like, I've been poor my whole life. Now I'm going to go out and just spend money. I'm going to roll up my money. I'm going to have a big roll of $100 bills in my pocket. I'm going to drive a sports car. I'm going to pay off, like Bonnie paid off her children's student loans, and she actually just said she's just buying a new house this week with cash. She's another one of our mentors and another super affiliate. So people, you definitely go through those spending phases where you're just like, you go a little bit crazy. And that's good. I mean, it's healthy, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. You won't do that forever. You get to the point where you're like, yeah, I don't really, now you just have freedom, you know, like with me, I don't really stop and think about how much money I spend anymore, really, because I just spend freely, but I'm still responsible. You know, I'm just creating this epic lifestyle, you know, but where I'm definitely spending way less than I'm making on a regular basis, and it doesn't matter anymore because I'm achieving that, you know, ultimate freedom, happiness level that I'm happy with. Okay, so what else here? The last thing I would touch on is doing what we call day parting.
We actually have a day parting section.
Okay, then I'll just hold off on that until we get to it. It's another way that you can maximize your profits, though.
I took a few notes, and I was trying to answer questions in the question box, so forgive me if I reiterate stuff you already said. But there's some things I wanted to address. So I saw some questions about how long they need to run ads if they're for example, if they're running $5 per day, can they run it for 3 days and get results, or $20 per day? And there's a general guideline that I want to throw out that's a good best practice, and that's if you're testing out an ad, the amount of money that is generally good to spend is roughly double the value of a sale. So if you go through and you get a conversion and that offer makes you on average like $30, then you're going to want to run a test of about $60 on an ad. So if you're running at $20 a day, you can get to that within 3 days ish. So that's a general guideline that will help you to determine how long you should run a test on an ad. So if it's an offer where it's a higher payout, then that's going to adjust things. So like if you make $55 on average on a sale, then you're going to be running roughly $110 on a test to that offer. A lot of fitness offers, the dollar per sale is a bit lower. They're not paying out $300 per sale, but that's okay. It works out in our favor because as long as the conversions are really high, as long as the sales page is converting really well, we can actually test for cheaper if it's a smaller payout. But that's a general guideline. So if you just want a rule for how long you should run a test, just look at how much you make per sale and double that and spend that amount of money in ad spend. One thing I wanted to throw out to you, Gary.
The caveat there is that if you don't make money in your first 3 to 5 days, then you can just let it go because you have nothing to compare it to. So again, like if you don't know how much you're going to earn per sale if you never get a sale. So if you get to that point where you've run $20 a day for 3 days, that's a pretty good cutoff point. We're like, okay, well, if I don't get a sale after 3 days spending $20, then I really don't have any data to work off of, nothing is working, and you can just kind of abandon that ad. And
so as a general guideline, you can say, well, a test can be, I don't know, $60 to $100. If you spend $30, it's not enough, But if you spend $20 for 3 days and you get 0 sales, then
that's enough.
You can test something else.
Yeah. Because what'll happen is like you spend $60, you spend $60 and then you get like 2 sales. Again, this is what we're talking about, where you're at that break even mark. You don't really, you're not profitable, right? But you haven't lost any money either, and you've got some data. So now you can run it again, and you can change a couple things with your targeting and say, okay, well, I was targeting, women between the ages of 35 and 64. Let me try to tighten that up a little bit, and let me test women between, I have this sense or whatever. You can trust your intuitions, or you can just test things. You said, let me just test women 35 to 45 women. You can create multiple different ads, say 46 to 55 and 56 to 64. Now you have the same ad running to 3 different age groups, and you can notice that, well, whoa, you know, like the 55 to 64 is killing it. You know, I got both of my 2 sales this week from that age group, and I got 0 from the other 2 age groups, right? So now you abandon those first 2, and now you just run it to those 2, and you realize that, well, okay, so now I'm getting like 6 sales instead of 2 for the same money, right? So you can see how that happens, and then you're like, okay, well, I tapped it, I figured it out. So now I can start scaling a little bit more. I can try $40, I can try $60 a day and see what happens. If I can continue to get those, making 300, 200% ROI, then you just keep scaling from there.
Okay, cool. There's another thing I want to cover, and I want to make sure that it got covered if I didn't miss it, and that is, did you cover how fast to scale a winning ad once you get a winner? What, like, increments?
No, not really.
Because the reason why is because I had a question that someone was saying, well, if I'm making 100% ROI, am I just jumping to $1,000 a day? In the beginning, that's what you did. You were like, screw it, and scaled up really quickly. But nowadays with Facebook, it's like you don't want to scale up super, super fast, right? You want to gradually scale up so you don't raise red flags. Are you muted?
Yeah, my keyboard wasn't working. It was like stuck or something. Yeah, you don't want to overdo it. It's not that you can't do it. It's just that you're putting yourself into a high risk category when you go from, on a new ad account, running $20 a day to $2,000 a day. It's too significant of an increase in your ad spend, and Facebook is all about it's. Facebook has become a bit like a credit agency. Is that what they call it? Like the credit card companies or the credit agencies, where they evaluate your credit worthiness. And
yeah, they're evaluating their risk. They've got algorithms because they're well, I don't really have a good analogy for this, but like, yeah, they have to anytime that somebody's processing a lot of money, then they're having to determine, like, oh, okay, here's what I was thinking. So they want to get paid for one thing. That's like the one thing that they want. So if you're going to start scaling up very big, and then they are working on a credit basis where they're going to then bill you on a weekly basis or on whatever the threshold is. If you start scaling up really big, they got to make sure they're going to get paid. So if you don't have a history of solid payments with Facebook and it's a new account, and you suddenly scale up to $1,000 a day, and they're like, we've only ever collected, $100 from ad spend from you, you're a high risk for us to suddenly you owe us $5,000. Hang on a second, slow down, buddy. So you have to think about that, because they have to think in terms of their risk for their best business practices. They're not trying to screw you over. They want you to spend a lot of money, but they don't want to do it at a risk either. So that's why you got to scale up a little bit slowly.
And there still is a threshold too, that plays into it, like the niches that you're going after, the type of product that you're promoting. So just to kind of elaborate on that a little bit, what Rob was saying, yes, if you've only spent, been spending $100 a day, and suddenly you go, because what happens is, like, they pull out of your bank every night, and like around midnight or something, or one time a day, they'll extract the money for the previous day's ad spend from your bank. So if you haven't built up enough credit worthiness with them that they feel comfortable with you, going $5,000, running you $5,000 worth of traffic, that they don't know if you can afford to pay for it, they're not going to take that kind of risk. Now, let's say that you have slowly scaled up, and you've gone from 100 to 200. The risk is pretty low for them. But the slower that you can afford to scale, the better. Honestly, if you listen to the interview with Wes, or if you listen to the interview with the vendor, he mentions this too. It's like people, especially newbies or people that have not achieved financial breakthrough yet, they tend to be way more eager to get to that point, and desperation will guide them. And if you're not in such a hurry, you're better off. Like the slower you scale, definitely the better off you are. We have one student now, turned mentor, Victoria. How long? Do you know how long she's been doing this, Rob? I mean, how long has she been a mentor? Even a year or more? And
yeah,
before that, so it's got to be at least 18 months to 2 years that she's been doing this, and she has never lost an ad account, to my knowledge. She's still running the same ad account that she started out with, and that's a really rare thing, by the way. So don't expect that to happen to you, because it almost certainly won't. But the one thing that we kind of determined with her, though, is that she's one of those people that if they go to the casino, they play the nickel slots, right? And they never go to the quarter slots, because they never go to the dollar or the $5. They never play any of the higher risk games, because they're happy. Maybe, but in my life experience, though, I'll change it from the casino, because that's a different situation. But if you're playing poker, or you're playing some kind of game where you're throwing nickels and quarters and stuff into the center of the coffee table and you're playing, or whatever, it's those people who don't take big risks and they kind of like run slow. It's like the tortoise wins the race, but not everybody has the patience to do that. I understand it. I'm exactly the high risk person. I am the addict type personality type, the alcoholic, recovered alcoholic, the guy who struggles with that. I push myself to the limit all the time, and I always have to kind of keep myself under control with it. But yeah, so if you can kind of slow things down, you're better off for it. But yeah. So did we cover everything? Because I kind of went off on a tangent. I don't want to run it forever.
Well, if you want to play it safe, I would say you keep it under 20% per day rate scaling up.
Yeah.
And
if you start out with $20, that's really hard to do, because it'll take you forever.
Yeah, it's not that big a deal when you're spending $20, $50, $100 a day. If you know, don't stress out about whether you're rating at $1 or $2. But you don't want to just be like, I'm doing $20 a day, I'm doing $50 a day. This ad is getting 300% ROI. I'm now going to do $1,000 a day. Right. You don't want to do that, Yeah. So keep it in mind that do a gradual shift upwards as you start to have success.
Yeah, and I'll just lay out for you kind of what I would typically do and have success with. So you start out with $20 a day, and once you get something that's working, you can jump it up to $100 a day. It's not that big, because Facebook doesn't really care if you go $100. You could start out with $100 a day and you'd be fine. So they don't care. You can probably get up to that $500 a day mark. I wouldn't jump there right away at this point anymore. I go $20, I go maybe $60, I go $120, maybe $200. In the beginning, you can do these big dramatic, percentage shifts, right? Where you're doubling or doing 50%, or 100% increase each day. If you're really trying to push it, you can do that. And then you can go from $100 a day to $150 or $200 a day. But once you get up to that $500 a day, kind of take it a little bit easy, go to $750 maybe to $1,000. But the point is you don't want to go overnight, just jump up too quickly, or you risk getting your ad account shut down. It's kind of dangerous. But if you get to the point where you're running, say, $1,000 a day or even $5,000 a day, and then you run a new ad, all right, and you start back at $20 a day, it's worth noting that at that point, then you can scale straight up to $5,000 a day at that point, because you've earned the credit with Facebook. They don't care if you jump down from 20 back to 5,000. Once you've hit that threshold, you can safely jump up quickly back up to that threshold again without any concern. It's just that initially building up. Again, think of it as a credit building your credit with them.
It's a payment history. It's like if you go and you look at your credit report, they look at how long you've been making payments, and that's an element of your credit worthiness. And so what they want to lower their risk is somebody who's consistently made, higher payments. So over time, as you run ads, if you've never run ads before, in the beginning, you're more of a high risk to Facebook. But as you start to scale up, especially as you consistently spend money every day with them, you fall into that sweet spot of advertisers that they love, who consistently spend, higher amounts of money on ad spend and consistently make those payouts, and they don't have these huge spikes and drops and erratic behavior. That's what Facebook likes, is the consistency over time. So it's the same with anything out there. When you're dealing with money, whether it's your bank account or your credit card or any vendor that handles large amounts of money where they have to float you, where you're using a service and then you're paying them on a delay. That's just the way the world works. So I had that written down as a note to cover that. I think we've probably covered most everything unless there's something that you wanted to hit before we jump to the split testing section.
A lot more to cover.
So we're talking about the cash now and how to manage your budget. But let's talk about when you're testing, what to actually test. Let's run through those elements.
Well, like I said.
You got a little bit of the robot voice for a second.
I got a major echo going on my ear. Okay.
All right.
I got a major echo going on my ear. Okay, it's gone.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you sound good now. There was a second where it sounded bad.
No, but I'm saying I'm hearing a major. Major. Crazy. Maybe I'll turn off my speakers or something, or. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So maybe it was your speakers. Okay. So I go after the big three niches. So health, wealth, and relationships. And I typically go after weight loss because that's where I've made 90% of my money on Facebook. I go after the big niches. And so with the big niches, you don't really have to go too crazy with your demographics and your targeting. Okay. So you don't have to go too crazy. So look at what's on the screen here. We have sex, age, location, device, and then forget the other three for a little while here. So there's only two options with sex. We know that when it comes to weight loss, it's the female population that is more concerned with weight. Really most people that are, nowadays in the Western world, between the ages of 35 and 64, or even above 64, are concerned with their looks. They're concerned with their health. In general, they want to live long lives, and they understand. They're educated, so they understand that diet and longevity. How long you're going to live on this planet. It's tied to your diet and your exercise. So men too. It's not just women. But when we're playing this ROI game and we want to get the highest ROI, and your audience is the entire planet, well, we want to start honing in on the highest ROI sectors that we can. So we'll focus on females first, right? Now, it's the same way with age groups. You can test out every element of that you see on your screen here. You can test male against female. If you're doing weight loss, you might find that female are going to do better most of the time. There might be certain funnels that you create accidentally where the male population will outperform the female population, and that's okay. If it does, then go with it. But anyway, so you can test the sex. It's an easy test. It's a 50-50. One test will, let's turn this off. It's getting too loud. One test will pretty much give you the answer there. If it's not weight loss, then something else. Again, you need to know. You can go out, by the way, and you can do research online. Demographic research tools out there that give you the demographics. They're not that reliable. So I don't. I'll do a little bit of homework sometimes and look it up. I don't really care, to be honest with you. I don't care. I care about what I test. What I test, that's what I use, because again, there's enough variation in a funnel that little things that you cannot anticipate can play a big role in whether or not your own specific funnel, your own specific situation. They might, the demographic research out there might be that women between this age group is where it's at, and they're probably going to be right like 90% of the time. But with your particular funnel, if you don't test it, you can be wrong about that. You might have some little psychological element that really triggers in men, and suddenly it's like it makes all the difference, and you might not be able to finger exactly what it is that you're doing even. It just happens that way. Anyway, we test sex. If you're doing weight loss, it tends to be female. With the age, for weight loss, it tends to be between the ages of 35 and 64. Again, you can also test 64 plus, over 64. Locations, because I mostly promote English speaking. Well, there's certain countries that we target more often than others. We're mostly going after United States, UK, Canada, Australia, and then we'll do South Africa, New Zealand, and there's a few other smaller predominantly English speaking. Singapore is good. There's a bunch of places where they have a good economy, and they have their English is commonly spoken, right? So where you can run there. And it varies. I've had amazing success in Australia, amazing success in the United States, and then it just goes from offer to offer, from funnel to funnel. It can be different all the time, and it can also be one of those things where things go like this. And one month, Australia is working really well for you, and America is just like it seems to be burnt out. And the next month it might shift. And then the other thing is, like, if you're running. This is just something to keep in mind. It's a general tool that you put in your pack that you carry with you to remember, right? Is that you might run a specific ad, not a specific funnel, and you might find that it works really, really well in America. And so you might test against, America versus Australia, and America wins, okay? You might test America against, South Africa or something, and America wins. You might run 5 ads, to 5 different locations, and the point is you see that America wins. Okay, so great. Now you're dialing in, and your ROI is going up higher and higher and higher over the first few days and weeks, and then you get to the point where you kind of hit that peak ROI that I keep talking about, and then you'll see that eventually over time it might start to kind of slowly go down, and you're like, it's burnout. So the mistake that a lot of people make is they're like, okay, I need to run something completely different. That might be true. But most of the time you can make a tweak in your location or your age groups, and it can make a significant difference. So maybe you shift now all of your traffic, maybe your ad has been saturated in America, or your American audience, or whatever the vein is that we'll talk about again here in a minute, that you're tapped into. It's like you've kind of tapped out that vein, and you can't get any more blood out of it. Okay, so you got to move to another vein, and then it'll it's like if you're another case where they use the word vein is like in gold. Like if you're mining for gold tends to run in a vein, right? That's running horizontal to the Earth's surface, and you can go down and you can tap into that vein, and you get it, and then you get through the other side and you run out, and you can move back up and get into that vein and move horizontally, move over and tap into the vein in another area, and you got more gold to tap into. So again, so you can just change your location, and sometimes that'll work for you. to just reinvigorate, your ROI. Okay, so moving on to the device. You have desktop, you have mobile, and if you go deeper into that, like to the devices, you have things like mobile. You have iPhones, you have Android phones, you have iPads, you have all mobile devices. You can kind of get really specific with what you're targeting there. Again, these are one of these things where I can't tell you what to target because, and I can't even explain this away either. I wish I could, but after years of doing this, it still mystifies me. It's like why one time with one funnel, the same product, right? But one campaign, iPad is crushing it for me. And then the next campaign, I find that it's just not performing as well. And I'm like, but now, like iPhone is working better than iPad. And I'm like, I can never explain it away, and that's okay. I gave up trying to know everything and trying to have expectations, because expectations lead to disappointment. Disappointment leads to frustration, and then I get burnout and frustrated. And it's not a good place. So I try to just test, again, until I get to that peak ROI, and then I just go live my life and have a great time. Now, beyond that, we can get into day parting a little bit. Day parting, for those of you who don't know, this is where you can really increase your ROI significantly if you have something that's working. So let me lay out a scenario for you. Let's say that you are disappointed, but you're excited. You're kind of in the middle there, right? You got a 60% ROI, and you're like, okay, so you're laying in bed at night, and you're like, you're excited, you're kind of nervous, and you're like, man, this really is working, but I wish I could hit that 100% ROI or that 200% ROI or the 300% ROI. You're excited, but you're like, but I'm only at 60%. But I'm still making money, and I'm still scaling. So now I'm spending, $200 a day, and I'm doing 60% ROI. So I'm making $120 a day. This is amazing. This is great. If I can just keep it going, yada, 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 right? Other factors can come into that too. You might get nervous because you're like, but I only have like $800 ad spend, for the next, 8 days or something like that. So I can't really scale that much. So let me throw another little factor in there to consider. Day parting is really, I should say this too. When I first got started with this, I didn't even know what day parting was. So again, it's not like I came from a background of running paid ads. I didn't. I didn't even know what the hell day parting was. But day parting is like if you focus your ad spend on a certain time of day or certain days throughout the week. Now, Facebook has tools that will allow you to do this, where you can set up day parting. So you can say, okay, I want to run. Say I have a $500 a day budget. I want to put, $250 between 8 a.m. and noon, and then $250 between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. For some reason, you were crazy enough to do that, right? So, but you can do that. Or you can say, I only want to run on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because you found that those days you're crushing it. And Tuesday and Thursday, it just doesn't, you have bad luck. So you just don't want to run there. Well, they have tools that will allow you to do that. And I do encourage you to use those tools or test those tools like I did. But I would say that if you have to choose between using their tools, they've gotten a lot better over the last 3 years. But I tend to, because I'm kind of like old school, I tend to not really use their tools. So I want to explain to you how I do it, how I do day parting in a more simple, less technical way that you wouldn't expect this to work, but it does for me. And so what I do with day parting is I mostly day part the time of day that I run ads, because I found what happens is like you'll you'll make a lot of money between this time and this time, and then you'll lose your ROI. So I'll lay out an example for you. Let's say that you set up your ad to run at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and think, what is that in New York time or in like Eastern Standard Time, like 4 hours? So maybe it's like 4 a.m. in California and 7 or 6, 7, 8 a.m. in other parts of the country. So if you run it before that in the middle of the night, Facebook will still deliver the traffic for you. They'll spread it out evenly. If you don't tell them what to do, they're going to spread out your traffic evenly. And so you're going to end up, running a lot of traffic to people who are maybe using a VPN, like a virtual private network, to show that they're in America when they're not really there. Or people that are up awake all late at night when they're not in that buyer's mindset. People tend to, through the psychology of human behavior, they tend to spend money at certain times, do things at certain times. And in the evenings, anyway, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but the point is that I'll run from like 4 a.m. Pacific time, and then by around, it depends and it varies, so I test this out, but I'll keep running it as long as I'm making sales all day. I'll keep running it all day. Sometimes I'm running until 7, 8, 9 p.m. at night, and then I find that my sales fall off. Okay, so after like 8 p.m., it's like I get no more sales, but I keep spending the same amount of money. So if you're doing the math inside of your head, let's say that you're spending, again, just to keep a really round number, let's say that you're spending $1,000 today. That's your ad budget set for today. And at 4 a.m., you're doing 50% ROI, and it's okay. At 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., but around 9 a.m., it's like you're at 400 or 600% ROI that hour. You're like, whoa, and then, say 10, 11, 12, you're doing really well. And then 1 and 2, you're doing really well. And then about 3 p.m., it just drops off, and now you're down to like 50% ROI, and then 30%. And then maybe at 5 or 6 p.m., say you lost money because you spent all that money for like 2 or 3 hours. You're spending money and you're not making any money. So, and then by like, maybe 7 or 8 p.m., it's like you start making money again. Then after like 8 p.m., it's like you're losing money. So do you just let it run 24 hours a day and just let it all average out, or do you day part, right? So what I recommend is that you day part, because and if you're making profit and you want simplicity, you don't have to day part. But especially in the beginning, like I wouldn't necessarily have to day part, or I can set up these automatic day parting with Facebook where they will automatically shut down, stop sending traffic during these times of the day that you set it to. So it'll have like a clock, and you'll choose what days and what times of days that you want to run, and you just set it up that way, and it'll automatically disperse your ad spend throughout the day based on the hours of the day that you find are working better for you. Does that make sense to everyone? Do you understand basic concept of day parting and how that can significantly increase your ROI? Because let's say that you find out that from 7 a.m. until 10 a.m. you're doing 600% ROI, and from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. you're doing 300% ROI, but the rest of the day you're losing money. So you can spread that $1,000 over those 5 hours instead of over like 12 or 16 hours, and you can make significantly more money. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. A bunch of people saying yes, yes, yes. Now another way of day parting is to run on certain days, and what I've found is that weekends you'll get a significant ROI boost on the weekends. Probably because people aren't working, people tend to go shop on weekends. They get into a different mental state. So when you go shopping for something to improve your life, when do you do it? Typically, just ask yourself that question. It will make sense to you. You come home after a really long day at work and go in there and start thinking about, how to improve your life, or you do it on the weekends when it's like your me time, right? I'm having me time. So, definitely you're going to be thinking about how to improve your life on a regular basis in the health, wealth, and relationships department. You want to go out on dates. When do you do it? Do it on the weekends. I want to have a better, like quality of life. I want to spend time with my friends. You do it on the weekend. all the things that you do to improve yourself tends to happen on the weekend. So it makes a lot of sense why people would spend more money and go shopping with something like a weight loss offer on the weekend. So you might find that you're doing 100% ROI during the week, 300 or 400% ROI on the weekend. If you have a limited budget, you can shift all of your ad spend or most of your ad spend. You know, you could say you could run like 20% of your weekly budget or 30, 50%. Let's just say that keep it like this. You're on 50% of your weekly budget Monday through Friday, or you might find that Thursday sucks, so you don't run on Thursday at all, okay? But then you put the remaining 50% just on Saturday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday, whatever's working for you. So anyway, this is kind of a hack. It works super, super well. I don't always do it because I don't always need to. Like if I have enough budget and I'm doing even 50% ROI on a Thursday, I don't really need to not run on a Thursday to save my budget, right? My ad spend, because I have technically unlimited ad spend. So I'm going to run every day. You can just run on the weekends if you have a limited budget. Does that make sense? So it just depends on your budget. If you get to the point where now you've got your positive cash flow and you have so much money set in the bank that you no longer need to worry about your budget or your ad spend. I see you. Go ahead. What's up, Rob?
You turned into a robot voice.
I did? Okay. How
Maybe
long
you
ago?
can turn your microphone off and then on.
Sure, I'll try.
I mean, mute yourself and then unmute yourself.
Okay, I did it. Is that any better?
Oh, wait.
Still robot. I'm going to turn off my
with the audio.
I'm going to turn off my and see if that helps.
I don't know.
No.
Maybe you can change the mic source on the audio section of GoToWebinar, and then I don't know, change it to your computer audio, and then change it back to your mic. Maybe that'll kickstart it.
Yeah, I'll try it on my computer mic right now.
Yeah, I'll try it on my computer. Oh, you know what? Hang on. Everybody says it's on my end. Okay, so never mind. You're fine. You there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, man. It's my mistake. I only heard it on my end. All right. Everybody just type in. Can you hear Gary's voice okay, or does he sound robot to you?
Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right. Sounds perfect to me now.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I got that echo, so if you can mute yourself.
Okay. I'll mute myself, and I think your webcam turned off.
Okay, I'll turn it back on. Okay. Is that good? Does everybody can see me and hear me okay? Somebody says he's got an echo. No, good. Sounds good. Somebody says echo. No echo now. Okay, good. I think it's only when Rob has his mic turned on that there's an echo. Okay, good. So back to day partying again. I want to emphasize.
Hopefully it's better now. I switched it to my computer audio.
Let me test it right now and see if I get in an echo. Okay, well, I'm not hearing the echo anymore. I'll take it back. It's about 3-4 seconds out. I get a full on echo. So you might have to shut off your mic after all. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, but we're good now. Okay, so back to that. I just want to emphasize how important it is, or such a powerful tool that day partying can be, especially when you're first getting started and you have a limited ad budget. It can just magnify how much money you can make on a limited budget. Okay. Now, when it comes with the landing page and the offer, split testing, guidelines, I'd say that the big things that you need to test on your, it's like we said earlier, spend most of your energy and time on your ad and your ad image, number one, your ad headline, and just all the little features of your ad. That's going to play the bigger role in your overall success. Make sure you have the continuity going from your ad image to your pre-sale page, so the image on your ad matches the image on your pre-sale page, and that there's some in the title or the heading of your ad has continuity to your pre-sale page too. And then, you know, just doing a bit of split testing over there as well. You can test your headlines. I wouldn't bother really probably testing the colors of buttons and things like that, because we've already beat that, you know, that dead horse about as much as we need to. I don't think you need to mess with it. If you decide to run something completely different later on, you know, like a totally new pre-sale page, or if we introduce to you a new pre-sale page or something like that, which we may do from time to time, then, you know, we'll all kind of like join forces to go split test a bunch of stuff and hammer stuff out together really, really fast. We can come up with, you know, the optimum pre-sale page design, layout, fonts, colors, color buttons, backgrounds, and all that stuff in like 2 days, because we're like, you know, hundreds of people testing it instead of like 1 or 2 or 3 people. But for now, you don't have to worry about that stuff. Mostly it's going to be the continuity factor between the ad and the pre-sale page, and it's going to be making sure that you didn't lose any of the psychology that's built into those pre-sale pages. But so there's little things you can test there, but you don't have to put that much energy into it. You got to make sure that you don't do any things like bad grammar in your pre-sale page. That's one of the common mistakes that people have. Not everybody's English as a first language. So when we're doing, you know, when we do testing and or we do like, you know, ad challenges, or occasionally even maybe like a pre-sale page challenge or something like that, in the past we've discovered that a lot of the mistakes that people make are just carelessness. So if you get to the point where, like I've seen so much in the past where somebody's like, I'm at a 13% you know, click-through ratio on my pre-sale page, but I have like a 15% on my ad, but I just can't seem, no matter what I'm doing, I can't seem to increase the conversion on my pre-sale page. What am I doing wrong? And I don't have like a lot of time for somebody to hit me up on Facebook or something and say, hey, can you just please take a look at my pre-sale page? I'm just gonna send you, you know, to like the Q&A, the weekly Q&A, or to the support department most of the time, because I just can't. I don't have the bandwidth to go in there and do a personalized one-on-one, you know, evaluation or something of your pre-sale page. So I can't do that all the time. But when I do look at the, you know, like when we do an organized, you know, like critique or something like that, what tends to happen is it'll be some like grammar mistake. You'll lose the trust of your audience because you misspell a word, or you just use some really bad grammar. So what I recommend doing there is do the trusted friend test, where you have somebody who's just really good at grammar. It's like the grammar police, you know. Maybe it's your aunt or your uncle or your friend of yours, or somebody that you know that's just really good at writing or something like that. They don't have to be good at marketing necessarily. That's what we're here for. But if you just need somebody to look over your landing page and make sure that you didn't do some kind of like obvious mistake, and ask them, be really specific. Say, is there anything here that sounds odd to you, or that sounds weird, that rubs you the wrong way, or makes you feel strange, or makes you feel like it's too hyped up, or, you know, maybe like in the beginning, if you ask, you know, your spouse or somebody to read your landing page, don't seed some idea in their mind. Just say, just read this and tell me what you think first. That's round one. And if they don't come back with anything, then you come back and you say, okay, now do it with a lot more, you know, criticism. Okay, like be really, really strict. Is there anything at all that I may have messed up on? And sometimes that's when it'll come out like, oh, well, I didn't want to say anything. I mean, it sounds pretty good, but I will admit that this kind of makes me feel a little bit like I don't really trust you, because it sounds like you're trying to sell me something here, you know, or something like that, right? So just, you know, you don't have to, you can kind of take it with a grain of salt, but sometimes people, whether they have any experience in marketing or not, or with writing ad copy or not, they can still sometimes turn you on, because you don't turn you on to what you're missing or what you're doing wrong, because you don't always know. You don't know what you don't know. Somebody else might be obvious to that person, okay? Now moving on to the offer, and then I'll pass it back to Rob if he wants to add anything here. The offer, it's just your test. The main thing you're doing to test the offer is that 3-day, $20 a day thing. And if it gets conversions, it's a winner, right? If it doesn't get conversions after you're spending, like Rob was saying, like double what, say you make $30 off of it. If you're making double, then it's a pretty good offer. I usually look at it like, if I get a sale within the first 3 days off of spending $20 a day, or 2 sales, I'm good. If 1 sale, maybe worth testing some more. But that's about it. And then I don't like try to look at, what is the CTR of the VSL to the VSL to the checkout page, or what's the conversion from the checkout page to actually getting a sale, right? Yes, that's a factor, and yes, I will communicate that with the vendor. I will even get down, later on, and once I'm doing really well with the funnel, I will start looking at how well the upsells convert, or how poorly the upsells convert, because frankly, even some of the best vendors out there, this is something that you learn over time as a top super affiliate. A vendor, they tend to have one offer that they're running. A top vendor, a really good vendor, might have 2 or 3 big successes under their belt, or they might only have 1 big success under their belt. And maybe they have lightning in a bottle with 1 VSL, a video sales letter that they've written that just converts like crazy. But Rob and I actually sat down with the #1 affiliate, not the #1 vendor that's there today, and not the guy that we did the interview with there, but another in the past, another #1 vendor. And we sat down, and they actually, their whole team got us on the phone to sit down and critique their entire funnel. And what we found, it increased their conversions on their upsells by like 60% or something, maybe even higher than that, 160%. Some radical change, because we saw that they put all their energy into their video sales letter. They didn't put enough energy into creating a really good upsell, or their ups. Like, let me just explain it to you guys who don't know this, just to get you all on the same page. If you were to purchase, and sometimes it's not a bad idea later, you don't have to do this now if you're on a limited budget, but at some point to go through and actually buy the product. If you're having some success with it and you get a few sales and you're profitable, maybe you want to drop, $100 or something like that. Or maybe if you have a good relationship with the vendor already, they can allow you to go through and purchase the product and without charging you for it, right? Walk you through the funnel, or maybe they have something they can pass you and show you what the whole funnel looks like on the inside. So if you look at it and you see that, like you're not getting any upsells on the second upsell or something like that, again, don't let me overcomplicate your thinking. If I'm saying too much here, just ignore this part of it. But I'm saying at some point you may want to get down, like I do, and get down in there. If a funnel is working really well for me, I'll kind of see where's the weak points. I want to find what is the weak point of this funnel. And so I'll go directly to the vendor and I'll be like, listen, your new upsell, and our mentors do this as well. One of our mentors did this for one of the top vendors. Went in there and said, this pre-sell or this upsell could be a lot better. It's performing really poorly, and you should be doing this, and you're not doing that. And so the vendors, they respect us a lot, and they understand that we are masters of conversions, and they'll listen to us. So we found where we've able to help vendors, just double, triple, quadruple the conversion on their upsells sometimes. So anyway, I would think more about that, but other than that, I wouldn't really worry about the offer that much. Put your trust in the vendor. If they're at the top of ClickBank, they're probably there for a reason. They know what they're doing. It doesn't mean that they're perfect. Yes, their funnel can always be better, but a good vendor has already split tested everything. You know, their VSL has been split tested numerous times. Each one of their upsells have been split tested numerous times, and you can count on them. So that's pretty much all I have for split testing guidelines. Rob?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, you probably missed it, but I was scrambling over here because your audio went muted for me, and I was trying to fix the audio. So I've actually been jumping on and off the webinar like the last 5 minutes.
I saw you pop off because I saw the screen went blank there. It was just my cam for a little while, but yeah, sounds better now.
Cool. So we're good on split testing guidelines. Should we hop ahead to the tracking IDs?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So I want to run through this, and I want to keep it simple.
Can I hop back in here? I want to answer one question real quick that just is jumping out at me. Somebody's asking, what is an upsell? I should just let you know, when you purchase a product, what happens is you'll purchase the front end product, and let's say it's a $37 product. Okay, it's the main course, right? And they try to pack a lot of value into that main course. So for $37, you get something. After the person makes the purchase, a lot of the times what happens is they'll give you what they call an OTO, right? So remember that. It's one-time offer. And it's an offer, it's a bump offer or an upsell offer where they're like, for a limited time right now, you only have, while this page is open, you can get the pro version for only $97 upgrade in the price. Or you can get some personalized help or something else, right, for $97. And so it's like a one-click thing, and if they click it, it's added to their sale. So now that $37 sale becomes 97 plus 37, so what is that, $134. And then after that, they'll say, oh yeah, and you get to download our archive of interviews, blah, 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 for only $54 more or something like that. So if they take it, now they get it, otherwise they never get the chance to buy that again. It puts a lot of urgency into the funnel, and some people take it. I mean, on average, about 50% of the people will take that first upsell, which is significant. So if the vendor isn't using upsells, then they're not making you as much money as they could be. And remember, the job of the affiliate of the vendor is to make you, the affiliate, as much money as they possibly can. They need to understand the upsells. The second upsell, on average, customers will take it about 30% of the time. And then the third upsell, same thing, about 30% of the time. But there's fewer and fewer customers who get that far in the upsell chain. Does that make sense? So that's an upsell. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. Hopefully that's to everybody.
Okay, cool. Yeah. There's a little bit of a delay in the questions right now for me. It made sense. I think it sounded good. So all right, so tracking IDs, the purpose of the tracking IDs are so that you can test a bunch of different stuff and you can see what's working and what's not working. So let's say that you're running 2 ads on Facebook and you're running them to you're just testing the images and you're running them to the same pre-sale page, the same offer. And then you go into your ClickBank account and you have 10 sales. Well, how do you know which of those sales are from ad 1 and which of those sales are from ad 2? If you're running more than one ad, the only way that you're going to know is if you actually track. So we've built this functionality into our pre-sale page. The actual setup of this is in the newbie-proof videos. So if from a technical perspective this sounds confusing, just make sure to review the newbie-proof videos. They go over that. But basically, when you put your link into your pre-sale page, it'll be like landingpageurl.com, $TID equals, and TID stands for tracking ID. And then you put in some letters and numbers to differentiate. And this can be as simple or as complex as you want it. It could be as simple as ad 1, ad 2, ad 3. And then when you go looking through your sales in ClickBank, you're going to see 10 sales, and maybe 3 of them say ad 1 and 7 of them say ad 2. So now you can crunch the numbers and you could say, how much ROI am I getting on ad 1 and how much ROI am I getting on ad 2? So one thing I want to mention before, this is some like trippy effects going on in your video. So naming conventions is something that I want to mention. So you want to come up with a standard naming convention for your situation, whatever helps you remember whatever stuff you're doing. So if you're testing a lot of stuff, I mean, you can put as much or as little as you want into there, whatever you want to track. So you can target, you can put in information. If you're testing different audiences, you could, like here I've got TID equals men 65 mobile, landing page 2, ad 3. You see there's all these different pieces of information that I'm throwing into that tracking ID. Or you could just do like TID 1, TID 2, TID 3, TID 4, and then somewhere you have a spreadsheet or a document where you list out all the stuff that, all the variations that you're doing on that specific ad campaign. The idea is just that whatever it is you're testing, you want to include a tracking ID so that you can differentiate that later when you just have a list of sales. So anything to add to that, Gary? But the goal is just to keep it as simple as possible.
No, I think you covered it really well. Again, it's just going to be different for everybody. It's just so that you can identify which ad is working. As long as you can identify it, it doesn't matter. That's what's important. You can put it into a spreadsheet or something like that, so you're always tracking and see your numbers really well.
So does everybody, give me a little feedback, does everybody understand the tracking ID thing? And if you have any questions specifically regarding tracking IDs, just plug them in right now. Okay, so a few questions are like, where do we put this tracking ID in the Facebook ad area, right on the ad we create? So there's a couple ways you can do it. Facebook gives you, I don't have the interface, they always change the interface. I don't have it right in front of me at the moment, but they do have a section where you can add tracking IDs to an ad. So you, like if your website is fitter, betterme.com, and then your pre-sale page is, quiz 1, it'd be /quiz 1, and you can either just insert your URL and at the end of that put the little question mark TID equals and add your tracking ID on that ad, or if you want, and you go and you say, I duplicate that ad campaign, change out the image, there's a field in Facebook that allows you to add, I forget what they call it. It's like, they don't call it tracking IDs, they call it something else, like query variables or some technical term. And if you add the ID there, it will add it onto the end. But the easiest way is to just make your URL in your ad in this format. And then the pre-sale.
Can I jump in there? I'm just gonna throw this out at you because a few people have said this. People who probably have a little more experience than others. I'm saying that asking, shouldn't you put the offer page URL.com instead of the landing page URL? They're thinking that that's a type. Yeah.
This is covered in the newbie proof videos. So they're thinking about the hop links. So this is all coded into our pre-sale page. You don't have to go and create a tracking hop link. Just make sure to review the newbie proof videos. I don't want to go too deep into technical stuff because that's for the supplemental videos and it's covered. Just make sure if the tech thing is confusing to you, watch the newbie proof video because that spells it out and it shows an example. The point is you need to understand in this section of the training right now is the concept of a tracking ID. So what it does, how to use it. Does the concept make sense to you? That if you're running one ad, you want to have a tracking ID that's like ad 1, and if you have another ad, you want a tracking ID that says ad 2. It says I have a slow connection, so I'm gonna, oops. Sorry, today's technical issues. Can you hear my voice okay? It looks like it just automatically turned off my camera, my webcam.
I can hear your voice just fine. Yeah, your cam is gone.
I
can reiterate something here to everyone. I just want to make sure that because there's a lot of questions around the tracking IDs and some of these technical questions that are technical stuff that we've been covering here. So again, I believe that most of this is covered inside of the newbie proof videos. So please review those. Sometimes when you watch the videos, they won't make sense to you right away. And then when we talk about this stuff, it'll make sense once you go back and watch the newbie-proof videos again.
Okay, so I think we can move on then. It sounds like in general people are understanding the tracking IDs.
Yeah.
So let's hop on through to let's cover the tap the vein method to wrap things up, and then we can spend a little bit of time on Q&A and shut things down because we're already over 2 hours.
You want to talk about Facebook Pixel at all on this call? Facebook Pixels?
We can. It's a little bit of an advanced topic.
Is it anything that was covered in the